La la la. Okay. Let me. Now it just seems really low. Is that really in my face now?
No, it's not.
Alright, cool. Hello, everybody! Welcome again to episode 4 of 20-somethings, because we are all in our 20-somethings and we gather around to talk about some things. It's another episode. It's another day, another episode. In today's episode, I'm going to have a little chat with you about the erratic behaviours that arise from stress and tiredness. So if you're a uni student, you'll probably know we're approaching Christmas, obviously. Everyone will know that. But that means, it's summative season or it's exam season or midterms. It's been pretty stressful. Obviously, Christmas is coming, so your friends are going to go to other places and you want to make most of your social time. I don't know, I can't talk for everyone, but right now I feel like I'm burning the candle at both ends a little bit. It makes you tired and it makes you overwhelmed and it makes you stressed, and that's okay. And I just wanted to talk about how that behavior can come out in various ways. For me, when I'm tired and I'm stressed, I get incredibly teary. I will cry every day about something or other. And it will be the most ridiculous thing. Me and my boyfriend kind of have a mutual understanding now that if I'm crying because I actually had less chocolate in the fridge than I thought I did, or the corner of my bed sheets is pinged off the mattress, or I can only find one sock and I can't find its partner, that isn't because I'm actually upset about those things. It is because I am really incredibly tired. The other day, he asked me if we wanted to go for breakfast. I said, I don't really want to go for breakfast, but why don't we do something else? And he said, no, that's fine. I'll just go to work. I was in hysterics. Actual hysterics. I was bawling my eyes out. What is actually the issue? I felt like, we were going to have some time together, and he just took the time away right in front of me. And actually, all it was, he just decided to go to work. And that's not putting me as second best or saying he doesn't want to spend time with me. That's just how my brain was working at that point in time, because I was tired or because I was stressed. And I will find these things every day when I'm tired and stressed. And I just think it's interesting to explore the differences in how we behave when we feel this way. My mum, for example, when she's tired or stressed, she's not teary, but she's quiet. My mum's normally, you've seen her on the pod. If not, go and watch the first episode. It's great. My mum is an incredibly chatty woman. Very positive, very uplifting, very life is amazing kind of woman, which is great and really positive influence to be around. But when she is tired or stressed, that's out the fucking window. It's gone. What did she say to me the other day? I was stood doing my makeup and I said, I wonder if I'm approaching that age where, acne will kind of stop, because I'm 21 now and I've had acne since I was literally like 12. It was rough. And for all those people, if you're watching, that were in my high school and told me I had acne at 12 because I didn't wash, it was just puberty. Then you got fucking acne. So anyway, I hope you're well. Yeah, I was saying I'm 21 now. I must be approaching when I stop getting acne. And my mum would normally, her response would be, yeah, that stops soon. And you're going to have like glowy, beautiful, lovely skin. And her response was, well, acne is actually a sign of youth. And then you get old, wrinkly, and die. Old and wrinkly like me. And I was like, what is this attitude? This is not your normal attitude. We'd had a lot of evenings as well where she'd just gone to bed at 7 and hadn't spoken to me or hadn't watched any telly or anything with me. I'm a Celebs on at the moment. We'll usually watch that together. And she just wouldn't, she just went upstairs. My boyfriend is like, is everything okay? She just seems quite blunt, but it's not because she's annoyed or angry or upset. She's just tired and just a little overwhelmed at the moment, and that's fine. And finds herself, getting annoyed with me for little stupid things, and I think that's funny. She's more irritable, I'm more teary when it comes to stress. She had a go at me because I sat on the remote. And I accidentally paused what we were watching. She was like, fuck's sake, Ava, I was watching this. I was like, it's fine, I'll just press play. Sorry. It's fine. It is what it is, isn't it? Anyway, I just wanted to give everybody some sort of reassurance that it's okay to behave irrationally sometimes, as long as you're not affecting other people. Also the people that you're around, the people you love, naturally almost become kind of emotional punching bags, which they shouldn't necessarily. But, you know, people like my boyfriend and people like my mum, they definitely see the worst sides of me. But that's because they're willing to. If they said to me, I'm not doing well with this, I don't like your behaviour, then of course I would adjust my behaviour and I'd have to think about things. But what I'm trying to say is it is okay to feel these irrational feelings, especially in times of stress and low energy levels, and it's dark early and it's cold and it's, you know, seasonal depression season. Everyone can struggle a little bit, but we need to find these joy in reflecting back on these behaviours and laughing about them, not taking ourselves too seriously, basically. It's okay if you feel a little bit shit. That's all right. Anyway, I'm going to move on now to my segment with my guest, Mr. Oscar Welchman. We're going to be talking about an array of things, really. We haven't filmed it yet. We're going to be talking about kind of productivity, how to make use of your time, managing stress, like what I've been speaking about, an array of other things. Hope you enjoy it. Hi, Oscar Welchman.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So you're so welcome. Thank you for coming. So normally when I have a guest on, we do like a really brief little intro of who you are, what you do, why are you here.
So I'm actually not 20 or older. I'm actually 19, so I shouldn't really be here, but I understand you needed to bring me on. And then we met a little bit or longer than a year ago, I would say.
Yeah.
We met. We're on the same course, so we met through our course, and yeah, I am 19. My name's Oscar. I come from Wiltshire. And now I live in Norwich.
Yeah.
What else would you like me to introduce about myself?
You know, actually, that's a really good intro. Normally, people sit there and they're like, "Oh, my name's Ava, and I'm 20, and I'm not 20, I'm 21, and you know, oh, I do this and I like this." Like, usually people panic, and actually, that was really calm and concise.
There we go.
So
That's
well
me.
done.
Calm and concise.
So you've obviously just watched me film my intro and my outro, which is back to front. Normally, I do it the other way. Is there, because I mentioned about, you know, how we deal with stress in different ways, and I wanted to ask you, you know, how do you deal with stress? Is there some kind of funny, irrational behaviour that you come out with, or even serious ones, you know? Yeah,
what I'd say, I mean, I think I have rational ways of dealing with it. I think I have irrational ways of dealing with stress. I think at the moment I am quite stressed, so at the moment I'm trying to, and I'm, you know, we were talking about it earlier, I'm perhaps lacking in sleep at the moment, and I've just got a lot of things on my mind, a lot of things I need to get done. And right now I'm just trying to say I'm actually not that stressed, you know. I'm just trying to talk myself down from it, because often when, you know, I'm lacking in sleep, I'm a little bit more emotional, like you were talking about earlier, or I can let myself get a little bit more emotional. But right now I'm really making an active effort to be calm. But then again, I have my vices, you know, like you know, YouTube is a big vice for me.
20-somethings podcast,
exactly,
obviously.
Big vice. And I think I let myself get away with easy things, you know, like I'll say, okay, I'm gonna, you know, go to the library tonight, and then I get back home and I'll get on my bed and be like, okay, 10 minutes of YouTube, set a timer, and then the timer goes off and I haven't finished my video, you know, so then I set another timer.
Yes.
Timer goes off, still haven't, you know, I'm on the new video, haven't finished it.
Yeah.
And it sounds ridiculous, but I think it's very easy to do that, isn't it? And because it's a vice that I've had for a long time, like I've almost grown up with it, I'd say, it's quite hard for me to combat it. And you've got like food, you know, I generally eat pretty healthily, but snacking is quite a problem for me. And then once I do one thing, I don't know about you, but when I do one thing, it can often roll on to the next few things, you know.
Okay.
Like it kind of starts a chain of unproductive habits. But I'm getting better at fighting it, you know. I think you know, like I'm trying to take it day by day at the moment, because, you know, I've got a lot on my mind, and I'm not unproductive as hell. Like I am quite a productive person. I'd like to hope.
Can I just say, for people that are watching this that don't know who Oscar is,
probably most people.
Well, all my 2 viewers. No, like, you are the single-handedly most productive person I know. Genuinely. And this isn't, and he'll sit there just before he goes off, he'll sit there and be like, no, actually, because, you know, I think I'm not as productive as that, and I do this and that and this, but I don't actually do them, and blah, 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 blah. And actually, do you know what? He's fucking really productive. He has joined, like, every society there ever fucking was from the origin of, like, humanity. Does a lot. I'm good at trying things. And you've got, like, 5,000 jobs.
Not really. I can, like, you're right. I do get involved in lots of different things at uni, but I often don't. I'm not as consistent as you are. Like I'll try lots of things, but I won't stick to them.
Okay.
Or I'm not very good at sticking to them. It's just not a habit that I've formed. I form very easily. And it makes me feel. I love trying things. I love it. But I haven't stuck to things to make them really habitual. I haven't stuck to things to mean that I'm really good at them. Too often. Like for example, sports. And things like that. And it does kind of irk me because it's kind of this big kind of contrast in my head that I have where I'm able to try lots of things, but I'm not able to stick at them. But I want to stick at them, but I don't want to let go of not trying new things. But I'm getting better at it, and it's really helped at the moment because I'm thinking about what I want to do after university. I let myself.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Really? We're in like early second year, man. That's intense, but cool. Calm.
But I feel like it feels for me quite important to do that, especially because I guess with our degree, there's no clear path, and I want to do something. I want to be aspirational with my goals. I just didn't know what they were, and now I'm really trying to find out what they are, what they were. I mean, and speaking to you as well, I think you've always said you're more clear about what you want to do, about your eureka moment.
Yeah. So do you know what? You're the only person that I've had this discussion about, like the eureka moment.
Really?
And I think it'd be good if you could like explain what that is, because I know for like it seems kind of obvious. But also, if you look into it, into like actually what it is and what it can mean, it's quite complex.
I mean, you're asking someone who hasn't had a eureka moment.
Yeah, no, I get it.
To define a eureka moment.
Well, maybe that's why I should ask you what it is. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting to experience with this moment? What do you think it is?
I think I don't believe that I can have a eureka moment because I think I have a different mindset. And I think perhaps I personally believe that it's a little bit harder because I'm a little bit older to have a eureka moment. You talk about, you were younger. I was speaking to your friend Jake, for example.
Yes.
Was very interesting because, you went and you did, was it mooting? You went and did debating competitions, right?
Oh my God, Jake Saville. And I know he'll be watching this. I remember he slayed so hard in that. It was like, we were in literally like year 9. We were like 14. And we had to go and it's so funny because I got paired with this guy and I was on the defence team for this court, and I think Jake was also, he might have been, I don't know if he was defence.
If you're watching Jake,
sorry Jake, I'm sorry, I've forgotten. But he won his and I won mine, and we had like, it was literally like a pretend court case. I was defending someone that had shoplifted. Not shoplifted because I was defence. Definitely did shoplift. And I got paired with this guy who was also in my year who'd clearly just been put on this as like a filler. Like they didn't have enough boys to put on it, so they just chucked him on. Like he had no interest in this whatsoever.
Really? So it had to be mixed, did it?
Yeah, we had to have equal men and women. And I got paired with him and I was like, just let me talk. And like, it sounds so arrogant, but I was like, oh, so what notes have you prepared? Because we got all the papers and stuff beforehand, all the evidence and stuff, and had to compile a there to support our client.
Wow.
And I'd done a lot for it, and I was like, what are your notes? Nothing. He was like, I don't even know what the case is. So I was like, shut up. Like, because there were people watching. It was in Cambridge. It was like, was it in Cambridge? I don't know. It was quite a big deal. For us at the time, I'm sure it probably wasn't. But as 14-year-old Ava, I was like, fuck me. I feel like fucking Robert Kardashian supporting OJ right now. It's like a big court case. And yeah, I remember saying to him, like, fuck off. Like, don't speak to me. And I just did the whole thing. And I slayed. But Jake slayed hard. But I remember watching Jake and being like, this is what he's meant to do. And that was his eureka moment.
Yeah, exactly. And then you talk about, teaching and your eureka, you kind of suggested that you had eureka moments there, didn't you?
Yes. I remember that moment.
I think I've always been interested in lots of things. And it sounds very cliche, I guess, to say, but, I really enjoy lots of things. I'm always, I'll see something, I'll be like, oh, that's so interesting. I'd love to pursue a career in that. And then this comes along as well, journalism, and then whatever it is, anything. There's so many things that I could list. Arts, for example, I love my art, but I don't, practice it enough because I think I have so many other clashing interests that I struggle to balance. And you know, in a way, I either don't have, I either haven't had eureka moments, or I've had lots. I've had many on lots of different things.
I think you have like mini eureka moment, like
mm.
mini multiple orgasms, mental orgasms.
Exactly. Yeah, fair. I think that's
Whereas
it.
me and Jake have had a big fat mental orgasm and have been like, we know what we're doing, but you're like all over the place.
But I don't believe that I can at the moment have that because I don't let myself get away with saying, okay, I'm willing to drop this, to take up this. You know, I don't give myself that mental space. Which kind of that sounds very consistent, you know, not letting myself drop something for something else.
Yeah.
You know, but it's actually not, because I spread my I don't know what's the saying.
Yourself so thin.
Myself, yeah. I was gonna say eggs or something there.
Spread my eggs so thin.
So thin, yeah.
Like
butter.
Mackey's.
I don't know. But yeah, I think I don't see myself having a eureka moment, but at the moment, you know, because I've been thinking about what I want to do a lot more, I've really been able to refine what I'm interested in. Yeah, I love to try things. And at uni, it's great because there's so many things you can try, you know, like this, like, you know, there's lots of different, you know, there's like 50 sports and
there's so much.
well over 100 societies.
Yeah.
And they've all got merits to them. They're all interesting.
I've not joined any.
Not joined any.
I'm not in a single society, club, anything. And that's what my mum was kind of hounding me about. Yeah, she was like, you've not joined anything. You've not joined any clubs or societies. You've not got any extracurriculars. And I was like, well, the pod is my extracurricular, you know. And I think a lot of people, I was talking to my dad the other day, and he was like, oh, cool. So how long do you spend like on the pod? You film for like an hour and a half and then just send it off? I was like, no. Like, I edit them. And he was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I was like, what did you think the fucking cuts were? Do you think I just shot in time and was like, when I was filming it? Like, how do you think that works? And he was like, oh, well, how long do you spend editing? I was like, quite a few hours, like minimum 3 hours. I've had max 6.5 hours I've spent on a video. And
would you join a club or society or?
I'm actually tempted by the drama society, because I've done drama for a really long time.
Yeah.
I used to think that was my eureka moment when I was a little itty bitty.
I went to a couple of the Drama Society, Musical Theatre Society plays recently. I invited you to it.
I know, and I didn't go. But I didn't go because... So I was genuinely at a dinner, but Oscar thinks that I compiled this whole thing to avoid the show. And I
think, yeah, she didn't want to watch it.
I've actually got genuine proof. I've got time-stamped pictures and videos from the dinner I was at. But if you don't believe me, that's fine. But I was there.
No, it's fair enough. It's all right. I had a last there anyway, so... better friend, you know, he actually turned up.
Yeah, imagine.
No, but I'm joking. It was really cool to see. You know, it's very amdram. It's very kind of but it was really good. You know, some of the acting was really, really good, and I wasn't sure where the plays came from. I wouldn't be surprised if they were written by students. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, not because they were bad, but because I think I just hadn't heard of them before.
I mean, like, that would be so cool.
Exactly.
If that is how it
and you know,
being worked.
We can actually apply to we can send in some scripts for to actually be performed in a competition run by Monitor Studios, which is in collaboration with UEA, which is quite exciting. I quite like to do that. I've got a couple of short scripts in the works that I'd like to do.
To get onto so me and Oscar are both on the creative writing and English literature course, so we obviously read books.
Well, I mean, I do.
Funnily enough, we read books, but we also write, is what I'm trying to say. So, like, I'm so scared that's going to turn off again. We read and write. And to get onto the course, you had to send in, like, a portfolio of writing. I sent in a script for that, written about my mum's last marriage. And I poured my heart into it, man. And I think that'd be really interesting to see that, like, played out.
Would you submit it?
Yeah. I called it The Cuckoo.
The Cuckoo.
Because cuckoos famously fly into other mother cuckoos' nests. They chuck out all their babies and they put their own babies in their place.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I called it that. You can interpret that how you will. Obviously, it's very ambiguous what that could possibly mean. But, yeah. And that was what got me onto this course, was that script. I did a lot of scripts. I think it was actually all scripts. I don't think I sent in anything else.
Damn.
I was convinced I was going to be a script writer before I started this course.
And you're not even taking the script writing module, are you? Or are you
Next
taking it next
semester.
semester? I see.
Next semester. But do you know what? I've been doing poetry and prose separately this semester. I'm not a poet.
Yeah, I don't think I am either.
I'm not a poet. I can't
enjoy
do it.
but it's...
I don't appreciate how the goalposts are moved every time. So, like, they'll sit there and be like, you need to do this, this, and this, and then you do it, and then they'll be like, well, no, because you're not doing this, this, and this. It's like, it needs to be ambiguous, but it needs to be clear. But you need to be putting in work, but the reader needs to be putting in work. But you need to have symbolism, but you need to have structure and form. But equally, if you don't experiment with structure and form, then it's not contemporary. But then if you do experiment with it, then it looks like you don't know structure and form. You need to have a rhyme scheme, but then that can be a bit samey and seem a bit jolly when you're talking about something quite dark.
I think you don't need a rhyme scheme, and you don't need a
no,
lot of those things.
this is what I mean. But this is what I'm saying. Every seminar is like something different, and I don't I don't. With prose, it's like write a story, go. A story will always be a story, and that's a huge umbrella, and it doesn't move. Whereas poetry, I feel like you line yourself up to do something, and then the expectations are moved again, and I can't keep up.
It's much more about form and about structure and about linguistic form, I guess, than stories are, which are still about that, but less so, I guess.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. It is quite hard to balance. I thought it was interesting. We both take literature and philosophy, and I thought there was an interesting analogy mentioned in our lecture today about a middle way. You meet someone in the middle with poetry, where it's you put some kind of some image there, but you let the reader discover the rest of it. You're half and half. Half. It's ambiguous, but not to a point where where you've got each reader completely interpreting it completely differently, but it's still ambiguous. It's more of a collaboration between the reader and the writer, I guess, and that's quite an interesting one. But
which is why I think I struggle doing it as a writer, because my type of writing is like, this is what's happening, and this is every single detail, so you can imagine it exactly how I'm imagining it, which is not poetry.
It does go against like the grain of conversation as well.
Yeah.
We speak because we want to get a point across, or say something that wants to be we want to be understood. And the idea that we should be saying something that's purposefully open to interpretation for our listener is quite unusual, isn't it? It doesn't happen in everyday speech.
I hate it. And I hate the fact that I'm putting it into other people's hands for them to misunderstand it. I don't ever want my writing to be misunderstood. I can have it where like my writing can be interpreted differently, but not misunderstood entirely. And I don't feel safe in poetry in that at all.
I understand, yeah.
And I had my first workshop in poetry a couple of weeks ago, and I read what someone's poem was in it, and it made me want to drop out of poetry.
Why? What did they say?
I was just it enraged me.
Really?
It really angered me.
What were they writing that made you so angry?
Because it made no sense. It makes no sense. And I sat there and I was like, I don't understand. Like, I'm a bit confused. And our seminar leader was like, oh, what are you confused about? And I was like, most of it. And she was like, well, can you point exactly where? And I pointed exactly where. And then she sat there and then explained the poem to me that she didn't even write. It was someone else's poem, which would have dicked me off if I was a writer anyway. Don't explain my poem for me. It's my poem. You didn't fucking write it. And she kind of made it out as if I was a tit, like I was a complete idiot because I didn't get it. And I was like, when I left that seminar, I was like, maybe I am an idiot. Maybe I don't get poetry. But you know what? I've spoken to people since, and some of the people were like, yeah, I didn't understand it either. And I was like, well, there we fucking go. It's about interpretation. That's the whole point of an English module.
It is interesting. I have sometimes come across people, even sometimes seminar teachers, who have proposed a certain interpretation of a text as fact, as this is the correct interpretation.
Yeah.
And it just feels very fundamentally wrong to be doing that with literature.
Yes.
Maybe in philosophy, if we're looking at philosophy, then that is the point, perhaps. But even then, different interpretations are really important when they clash. That's a really important thing. But what were we saying?
About philosophy.
Yes.
And, about interpretations and stuff like that. And you said, that's what I like about philosophy, because there are different interpretations. And
Well, that's not what I like about philosophy.
It's what you dislike about philosophy?
It's a downfall of it's a linguistic downfall, isn't it? It's not philosophy is almost unarguably, I would say. I mean, it is arguable to say this, but I would suggest that most people would agree with me by saying that philosophy is about saying things with clarity, without. It's about suggesting an idea or a concept, and trying to make it as clear as possible, so that people would agree or disagree, or at least so that they would understand you is what's most important. And I feel like it's a linguistic downfall. It's a failure of language, to the fact that we don't often fully understand. This is what Wittgenstein says. This is what we seem to keep talking about in our literature and philosophy stuff. And I'm really interested in what he has to say, because he talks about how we never quite understand, or we can never quite say what we really mean. But then he goes in his earlier works and says we should never say anything at all, which is
Makes
a
sense.
bit, which is not what we're doing right now. And then later on he talks about language games, which is, I believe, more interesting, because he suggests that there's always hidden subtextual goals and agendas behind conversations you're having with other people. Like, for example, here, the hidden goal might be to say something entertaining, or it might be to come off as interesting.
Yes.
And if you can find those subtextual rules that adhere to each language game, maybe you're chatting to a new person and you want to come off as cool, if you can find that and if you can try and adhere to it, then you're being successful. You're winning that language game.
Well, I think this is an interesting concept for you to bring up, and if you don't want to talk about it, so fine.
It's all right. Tell me about it.
Because I haven't given you a heads up. It's just like
what were you going to mention?
Was talking about language and how we come across and how we are perceived, and how you want to be perceived. Like, we had a conversation about this not long ago about identity and how naturally we adjust to the people around us. Yeah. And sometimes I spoke about, in my teenage years, I had like 6 different personalities. Like, I was 6 different people. It was fucking mental. And none of them were really that alike. And I felt like I just changed into completely different people depending on who I was around. And it took me a while to sit there and kind of be like, well, who am I? And who do I want to be? And what parts of these traits from these different characters I have, which ones do I identify with and which ones do I want to have? And how do I perceive myself and how do I want these people to perceive me? And I think that's an interesting thing to bring up with you, with talking about how you are perceived, how do you think you are perceived, and how do you want to be,
I think, it's a tough question to ask.
If you don't want to answer it, that's fine.
I think it's an interesting one to talk about, and I'm not, I wouldn't hide away from answering it. I think it's hard to try and know your values and goals, especially if like me, you spread yourself very thin, you try lots of things, it makes me quite ungrounded. It means that I also don't take I try and take as much of a moderate political perspective as I can, especially at the moment. I've been trying to do that. I didn't in the past, but it's because I feel like it's really important to me that I listen to everyone's point of view.
Of course.
Because for me, that I guess that's my value, is to that's one of my values, right? So that's part of my identity, is that I really should be making an effort to try and consider a side of the argument that I would naturally turn against, and just hear what the other person has to say, because they believe it. So why shouldn't I? So I guess that's a piece of identity that I found that I should be trying to adhere to. I believe it's about trying to find your values, and then if you can find your values, your core values, then you need to live in accordance with them. And I've been very good at doing that, but I'm really trying to focus on it at the moment, alongside trying to find my interests. Interests are perhaps a bit different to values, but often they can align. And also, different people bring out different sides of you, don't they? I think I act slightly differently to different people, just because I have a slightly different relationship with different people. And beyond that, it was interesting. I was speaking to, I think it was last year, a friend of mine who's on the who studies what's it called, speech and language therapy.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And she was saying, because she studies the phonetic alphabet, she can write phonetically. It's slightly different to the normal alphabet. I don't know a huge amount about it.
Is that the like her?
It's kind of, you will write, you can write accents, for example.
Right.
If you write I'm not sure if it's specifically referred to as phonetically, but you are writing the sounds as opposed to just the kind of basic 26 letters we know about.
Right, okay.
But Japanese does it, for example. Japanese language is written. I'm learning Japanese at the moment, which is why I know this. But it's written.
Because he does everything.
Well, to be fair, this is quite relevant because I'm going for a semester abroad in Japan, and
Yes.
I need to learn for that. That's coming up, but but it's interesting because she was saying, she because she really spends a lot of time listening to people and accents and pronunciation. She notices that people speak different, like have different accents around different people.
Yes. I used to do that. I used to be all road man with certain people.
Exactly.
It makes me cringe now.
I think I still do, sometimes.
Do you go a bit road man?
Oh, well,
Give me the best. Actually,
absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't know. I don't think I have a one way of speaking. I think put me in front of my parents and back in Wiltshire, and I'll be
very different.
Yeah, I was about to say Wiltshire over there, but I don't speak with a farmer's accent. What am I saying?
I mean, I think that's a probe. What is probe? A prone thing in like Norfolk is a whole like Norfolk accent. And it's very strong on my dad's side for sure. But my mum's side is very well spoken. I say mum's side is pretty much just mum. Mum is well spoken, and I spent most of my time with her, so I think I'd like to think I don't sound like a real Norfolk broad, but I think it.
I mean, what do you think about the term well spoken? Because it almost implies there's a proper way of speaking.
That's a good point. I mean, when I say well spoken, I mean like. How do I put it? Like clearly articulate, like the British accent. Do you see what I mean? The typical like Downton Abbey, old-fashioned, like clearly articulate voice.
I think often when I drop letters or things in my speech when I'm with my family, I'm trying to think of an example now. What do we drop? What kind of phrases or words?
Tea. We always dropped it. Water.
That yeah, exactly, water. Yeah, there we go. I've sometimes done that with my family. I think when I do that, my mum will say, my family might say, I'll speak with the Queen's English, and I think
that's it, the Queen's English. Yeah, I hear that.
I understand, and then they'll say, come on, you're educated, you should be using this language, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think I understand that it's easier to understand it's pronouncing everything. It's interesting when I speak to people whose English is their second language and they're still learning English, they prefer to listen to that kind of every pronunciation, easy to understand English. But I don't know. I mean, is there one way of speaking English? No. Should we say that there's a proper way? I guess not. I don't think so.
And actually, I think what a big fat slay is like, I sometimes walk into a room and I don't necessarily feel like the most intelligent person in the room, and I'm perceived not to be sometimes because of
yeah, it's understandable.
Because I'm just dumb.
Yeah.
No, like because of the way like I dress, or I got told in my seminar the other day that the vibes I give off is I would bully you in high school. Is the vibes I give off, apparently.
I mean, you're very fierce. You're very kind of like, like eloquently clear and direct. You don't sugarcoat things in a way that I really admire.
Thank you.
But then again, it can, because people do often sugarcoat things.
Yeah. I don't do that.
It can come off as scary, perhaps.
Well, this is what I mean. I think that kind of attitude, I get told it's like very like popular girl, and I think the stereotype of popular girl is that like ditzy little blonde, doesn't know anything, which is just stupid. So then when I get interpreted like that and I walk into a room and I state my fucking shit and I state it clearly and I state it well, that like I know what I'm talking about, that's such a slay for me. Like I love that feeling, because just because I don't necessarily talk like you, or I don't look like you, or I don't act like you, doesn't mean that I don't know as much as you. And I think that that's something I try and keep in mind with all walks of life. People like Stormzy, for example, he speaks nothing like how we speak. He's got that London accent, that like typical like roadman vibe or whatever. He's an incredibly intelligent man, like incredibly intelligent. And it's like the assumptions that match like stereotypes. Do you know what I mean? And
he raps about very interesting things. I mean, Kendrick is another good example of someone who's created something fiercely literary. It's incredibly literary, and there's so much analysis you can give to Kendrick's albums and things like that, but it's not traditionally literary. It's not the traditional kind of, perhaps colonial, you would say, where, perceived intelligence. But I was going to say something. I'm trying to think about what it was.
Sorry, I've just thrown so much at you.
No. It's okay. What was I going to say? It'll come back to me. But yeah, what else do you want to talk about?
I'd also like to talk about, how do I put it?
I know what I was going to say, actually.
Go on, tell me first.
Because you were talking about your confidence, and I think one thing that I think I admire you for, and I think you can be different to other confident people about, is you always say, I think, instead of this is. You don't state how it is. You state your opinion or your perception, which I believe is really important, because, it implies that actually that you haven't perceived the right thing, but it's just that your perception. I feel like it can be narcissistic, or it can be too much of an assumption to make, to assume that you are factually correct, that you are objectively right in your assumption or your idea of things. And that's quite important. You get a lot of confident people who state it how it is instead of state it as their opinion.
I think, do you know the biggest thing that I find that seems to come up in is moral dilemmas. Questions of like right and wrong, where people sit there and be like, this is the kind thing to do, this is the bad thing to do, this is what nasty people say, this is what nice people say, and actually, because there's no arguably right, like correct or incorrect response. Everyone has their own moral compass that is set in completely different ways, and there isn't a correct and an incorrect. I mean, we have things like the law that are in place to kind of set some kind of guidelines, but who's to say what I think is a kind person is the right kind person, and what you think is a kind person isn't the right one, because it's not the same as mine? Why would I know that more than you?
Yeah, no, it's an important question. In A-level theology, philosophy and ethics, we studied meta-ethics, which is the idea about whether there is an objective, factual, moral truth, or whether there just isn't, whether there is no ethical, objective correctness or not. And perhaps, you could say it's more tied with religion, when there is, when you would make the argument for an ethical truth, for an ethical fact, But often, if you're, I know you and I are agnostic, I believe.
Yeah.
There is no kind of religious aspect to it. And I guess, I tend to veer towards the idea that there is no kind of objective ethical truth. I don't know, I feel like morality has this very high status that it shouldn't have, because often what we're really trying to say is, we're using morality for different criteria. There's different criteria that we each put on morality. Perhaps morality is about the preservation of as much human life as possible, which then, you take a much more pacifist approach to things. Perhaps if you're a religious person, morality is about trying to convince people that God exists, and that this is how this is.
Well, yeah,
this
people
is the
like
truth.
Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff that come to your door with all these pamphlets, and they're like, you need to join.
And that's fiercely moral to them. That's really important. I'm using the word fiercely a lot. I don't usually do that, but I think that's really important, and it's quite admirable that they do that, because to them they're saving us from damnation, right?
In their minds.
In their minds, they are, and you're like, wow, you do that for me. That I feel like it's easy to go, yeah,
that's
mate, fuck off. I don't want to.
That's interesting. That's your approach, because. My mum, and she won't mind me saying, because she jokes about it, it can be quite rude to these people that show up at the door. Have you seen that Outnumbered episode where these Jehovah's Witnesses come to have you ever seen Outnumbered? No, it's fine. Basically, it's like a story about a little family. There's like 2 parents and 3 quite chaotic young children. It's about just British families. And there's a scene where this shit's all going down in the house. It's all a bit chaotic, and these Jehovah's Witnesses show up at the door. And they say, the mum opens the door and they say to her, they go, do you feel like humanity can solve everything? And she just goes, yes, and shuts the door. That's probably the approach they get most of the time. And my mum's low-key like that. She's like, sorry, don't care. And I think, in their minds, they must be like, how can you not care? Because to us, it's really super important. It's interesting that you take that approach, which is a nice approach. It's a kind and very not egocentric approach to be able to put yourself in their shoes.
I mean, on the other hand, they are kind of breaching your personal space for something that they care about that they know that you don't care about. Or they don't know that, to be fair. I shouldn't say what they know or don't know. But I think as well, I believe personally that they're making a failure of judgment to assume that that their perception of what's right and wrong should be everyone's. But that's the trouble with religion, I guess, is that there is this moral and factual truth that you believe is true not just for yourself but for everyone.
Yeah.
And so of course you're going to fight for what you believe in because you believe that everyone should believe in it and that they're just factually wrong if they don't. And I guess talking about values and about knowing who you are, that's really important to me. I've realised that actually we shouldn't put so much emphasis on this idea that we're right,
Yes.
But it's really hard to do with religion, isn't it? It's really, really tough to do.
Do you feel like, because we've had conversations about how you are, and me too, are quite central people. Our beliefs aren't particularly all the way over here, and they're not particularly all the way over here. Quite a lot of the time we land quite neatly in the middle. And does that ever give you any sort of anxiety that you feel like maybe you're not in a team or,
I mean, I think I would say that, if we're talking about politics specifically, I think you can find lots of centrist political figures. But
I don't necessarily mean politics all the time. I mean generally, but yes.
The trouble is, often those who are more, who have more radical views, or perhaps not even radical, but have more, views that don't tend to adhere or listen to, take into account opposing views so clearly, which perhaps is what radical is, they're much more emotional about it, they're much more passionate about it, and they're very, very willing to fight against those they disagree with, and almost creates an enemy side, right, which is the other side, because when you're radical on one side, then you have a stronger enemy on the other side, which is the radical other side, right? Yeah. And I think it really, I like this phrase that I'm really into, for example, the Rest is Politics podcast, and Rory Stewart, who's a very interesting ex-politician, hopefully a politician who might come back into to Parliament. I would like him to come back into Parliament.
Okay. I don't know anything about him, I'm sorry, so I can't put my opinion in there. But
of course, but he uses this phrase called radical humility that he's talked about. I think he actually got it from someone he was interviewing, but he uses this phrase radical humility, which is it implies that we should all have humility, have the ability to listen to those who disagree with us, even to a radical extent, even when you absolutely despise their view, even when it's so clearly wrong to you, you should still hear what they have to say. And the funny thing is, even if you outwardly portray that you're doing that, but in your inside you ignore them, the fact that you show that you're trying to do that in itself makes them more considerate to your side. It makes debates better when you're able to listen to the other side, because people aren't defensive, right?
Well, that I think that applies. I use that in arguments, in disagreements, in social disagreements, and it completely fucking works. If you sit there in an argument with someone and you listen to what they have to say and you say, yep, I can see how you were upset by my behaviour that I did that and I'm sorry for that. I feel this way, this way, this way and this way about it. What do you think about that? If you can own up to what you have done wrong, as well as making your own point, the other person is so much more likely to take that on board because they're seeing that you've taken it on board. As soon as an argument becomes that I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're just one-upping each other, and that's when hurtful.
And neither side is going to change their viewpoint at that point.
Yeah, you can't
either.
change people's minds.
I think the best way to change people's minds, I'm speaking objectively. I don't think it's, I don't know this, but I personally believe that the best way to do it is to get them to change it themselves by, first of all, showing that you're not evil because you disagree with them, that you'll listen to what they have to say, but just kind of really calmly saying, this is how I think, but I understand that you think something different, this is just how I think. And then what they'll do is they'll listen to it and they'll go, they're not trying to force his opinion on me. Let me just think about it. And then maybe by themselves, they'll come to the conclusion of, actually, you know what, they were correct, or I can see where they're coming from. I now take a lesser stance than I did before, or a different stance, or I'm less inconsiderate with the other side when I think about what I have to say. It's difficult to talk about these things as well, and I don't want to apply it to anything specific, especially in politics, because it can be very, very polarizing, touchy. Very, very touchy, very quickly. And
I try
often
not
understandably.
to talk about politics.
There's a lot of suffering, right? There's a lot of injustice and suffering and pain that goes on, and it's terrible, it's horrible. And I'm really trying hard not to mention anything specific because I don't want to, and I don't want to put any opinions out there.
Arguably wouldn't, not because I think it's insignificant in any sort of way. I think it's incredibly significant, but first of all, like...
Sorry, this is the wrong type of podcast.
Yeah, it's not the podcast for it, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Am I talking about the wrong things?
No!
I'm not.
No, I was literally, as you were talking, I was like, I know what I'm going to name this part. Like, it's nice to have, like, these kind of big ethical, philosophical questions and talk about them, because I've not had this kind of podcast before. But it's a good one. It's refreshing. I also wanted to talk to you about feelings of anxiety and stress and how you deal with those, because I love the conversation we're having.
Yes, my bad. Yeah.
No, not at all your bad. I love the conversation we're having, but I don't want it to veer into things that are too specific.
Okay, yeah.
I don't get down to details on this pod, but
of course.
We can talk about that another time.
So anxiety.
Yes, and stress.
I mean, I get anxious. I'm sure many people do. Perhaps most people. Perhaps even all people.
Yes. Well, my mum always says that everybody has anxiety. Everyone has anxious feelings. It's just some people deal with it badly, and some people have it to more extent than others. So people that struggle with anxiety, they're not the only people that have anxiety. Everyone that has anxiety, it's just they struggle with it more because it's in a bigger deal, is a bigger load of anxiety, or haven't found coping strategies for it yet. I'm one of those people. I really struggle with anxiety.
And what kind of anxiety, if you want to talk about it, but we don't have to.
Oh, I haven't had someone ask me a question on this pod like that.
You did say I could.
No, absolutely you could. It should be both ways. It's conversational. So the anxiety I have tends to be incredibly, almost like hypochondriac. Like, I'm convinced myself that I'm unwell, like really ill. My mum thinks it stems from my grandfather passed away when I was 3. I was tiny. I didn't understand like what death was at 3. And my mum told me, as a way of explaining it, she was like, he's gone on holiday to somewhere else that we can't visit for quite a long time, but he's fine. He's just not going to come back for quite a while because he was quite poorly. He was unwell. And so I then, whenever I was ill as a child, was like, I'm going to die. Because that's what happened with Granddad. He wasn't very well and then he died. That's how people die. And so from a really young age, like that kind of stemmed in me, that like panic of illness. And it's just stuck with me, man. Like, I think quite often it's more stomach stuff where I sit there, like if I'm too hot, I'll sit there and be like, oh, well, you get too hot when you're about to be sick, and then what if I am sick, and what if I'm sick in this lecture hall all over somebody, and then everyone looks at me and thinks that I'm like the sick girl, and then what if the toilet isn't nearby, what if I miss the toilet because it's ages away and I'm sick in the hallway and then someone else has to clean it up, and then I'm a nuisance, and like, that snowball effect that comes from literally like you're just too hot.
And that is something that's seems very fundamental to anxiety, doesn't it? To catastrophize and to create the worst possible outcome, and to not let yourself live in the present moment, but to focus on everything that's going to go wrong, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing it lots today. I do it lots. For example, at the moment I'm trying to think about work experience. I mean, I know I'm leaving it quite late, but I'm trying to find some over January, February time.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm freaking out that I'm not going to find anything, and that's preventing me from actually looking in the first place, and it has been doing that for a little while.
Interesting.
And because I catastrophize, and the thing is, it's easy to, I think it's very, very possible catastrophe if we're talking about, I mean, it's not a catastrophe, but that I won't find anything, and that I won't be able to make the most of those 2 months because I'm not studying, because I'm going for my semester abroad, and basically Japanese semester times are a little bit later.
Yes.
Just a bit of context. But I don't know about you, but when I let myself snowball like that in my head, it's so easy to, right? I mean,
so easy.
And you don't even notice you're doing it sometimes. Yeah. I prevent myself from trying to solve my problems or trying to.
Yeah, it can be really suffocating. I describe it to my mum as I feel like I get stuck in this bubble, and the bubble is just getting higher and higher and higher in the air, and the likelihood of me popping it gets smaller and smaller because I'm higher. And it feels more dangerous, and it's encompassing and really hard to break the spell of. You know, it's something I've dealt with for years and years and years, and I'm getting better at it. I used to not be able to like sit in assemblies, or like whenever my mum booked theatre tickets, we'd have to like book them on the end, same as cinemas, like on the end of an aisle, so I could get out easily. I used to have a panic attack every single time I got on a train or a plane. So now I can get on trains and planes, and now I can sit wherever I like in a cinema, and you know, like things like that. I could sit in an assembly, I could sit in lectures, and I'm fine. So obviously it is improving.
So that's interesting. Often, I guess, perhaps people don't often solve their problems, but they improve them. They learn to live with them.
Yes.
And to work around them.
It's not ever going to disappear. It's not
Yeah.
ever going to go away. And I think for anyone watching it that does struggle with anxiety, that's a really harsh realization I had to come to. I was having therapy, and my therapist was one that told me it. And I was like, fuck me, you're supposed to solve all my issues. She was like, I'm not supposed to solve them. I'm supposed to help you make them better.
I mean, I wonder whether it's true to suggest that you're never going to solve some of your problems, you know. But I don't know. I mean, maybe this is just a fundamental misconception of...
I don't think you can with anxiety, things like that. I think a lot of mental health is something, it's not about it making it vanish.
You learn about how to cope with it.
Yes.
And how to deal with it, and how to... to work with it when it's going wrong. Yeah. So, yeah, and I've been doing that, to be fair. A lot of the time, so you're talking about downward spirals, right? I often have a literal spiral where I let myself... Did I talk about this already? Let myself get away with something, and then another thing comes, and another thing, and then another thing.
You did, but you didn't go into it. You just said that, and then didn't, just left it at that.
Okay, yeah. So often, you know, like, I'd have been productive for a day, and then I'll let myself go on YouTube or whatever, and then that will lead to another problem, which will then lead to another problem. And because I've let myself get behind and then beat myself up about it, and then what I need is like a dopamine balancer, you know, because I'm upset, I'm stressed, so I'm gonna go, okay, what, you know, how am I gonna solve that? My head goes food, my head goes YouTube, my head goes lying on the bed and doing nothing, right? And then I'm more angry with myself that I've just let myself do that. So then I fall back onto my issues, and I feel like part of my coping of that is I let myself get away with that too much, and now I've realised that actually I can just stop myself and go, actually, you know what? Don't be mad about the past. Just try and, you know, do the best in the present, right? Focus on the present moment. It feels very zen to say that, and it is quite zen, to be fair.
It is.
And I really like that kind of idea. I like my yoga. I quite like
You are literally like
zen.
my mother, but it's cute. That's why we get on, because you're just a really comfortable vibe.
I appreciate it. I think I can be quite anxious to be around sometimes, or angsty. A close friend of mine recently said to me, because I've been quite stressed at the moment, and it's something I'm trying to work through. You know, said, you know, I just let you kind of get on with your own devices at the moment. I live with them, and they said, I haven't spent so much time with you recently because you've been stressed, and I don't want to intrude on that, you know, because often one person's stress can lead to another person's stress, right? When you're in a stressed environment.
Yeah, it can be contagious. I never really feel that way with you, though. But I don't really feel that way with many people. The only person's stress that I take on is my mother's stress. But I think, again, that probably is because I live with her.
Exactly. And also, again, yeah, I don't live with you. I think also, you know, you see a different side to me than other people see, you know. You know, you mentioned that you have different personalities. You had, at one point, different personalities for different people. I do think that, you know, we show different people different sides of ourselves. No, I might let myself get away with things that I really disagree with around some people, but then I'm more measured around others, like you, perhaps.
So how do you feel then being, you know, we're recorded. We're being uploaded somewhere where people can watch it. Is there a part of you where you're like, some people are going to watch this and be like, who is that? I don't recognise this Oscar.
I don't mind that other people can perceive me, if that's what you're asking.
Or people that know you but know you to behave differently.
Oh, right. Then I'd like to hope that at the moment I'm putting out there a version of myself that I'm proud of. And I feel like I have, although I'm perhaps a bit rambly at the moment and I'm not perfect, you know, I could point out, you know, I fiddle, you know, I'm not so good
fiddling.
with... Exactly.
That's fine.
And things like that. But I think, you know, no one's perfect, and I think I feel like I'm putting out a version of myself that I'm happy with.
Maybe this is something to consider then.
What? Coming on every week? Is that it? A permanent guest?
Yeah, every day. Let's do a pod every day.
Perfect.
No, I mean something to consider as in the parts of yourself that you like and the parts of yourself that you want to present and how you want to be displayed.
What, just giving that to everyone or showing myself, that version of myself, to everybody.
Being more comfortable with that version of yourself because that's the one that you want to be seen as.
I think often, this takes a specific environment for me to behave like this.
I'm really impressed with you, can I say, because I wasn't sure how it was going to be once that camera was on. Because we can have chats like this. We have chats like this all the time.
Yeah.
I have quite a lot of philosophical chats with Oscar. We end up talking and rambling for like hours and hours. But I wasn't sure if it was going to be as like fluid once a camera was in. But it's been fine. I'm really impressed with you.
There we go. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know. I'm not very used to having myself filmed. I actually struggle often with taking photos of myself a little bit. Not too much. I'm better at it, and I will often go like, stop being self-critical when you see those photos. But yeah, I'm not always comfortable around other people, and that's often what brings out my ineloquence. I'm often not very eloquent around other people, or I don't know how to act. I don't know how to come across. I think it's easy for me to say, why don't I behave like this all the time? But if we're going to go Wittgenstein about it, the language games are different.
Once again, Wittgenstein is my icon.
But often, we're not talking about, the conversation is something that I'm not so good at. Perhaps I'm okay at having these kinds of conversations, but if it's about, if something I don't know much about, or if it's about opinion on movies or things like that, I find it quite hard to navigate that, because often, if it's opinion on things, people give things as objective fact. This is just how it was, and often I find it hard to not deliver my opinion on things like that.
You don't have to.
But you can just say, this is how what I think, yeah. Or, I don't even know, it's just banter, I'm not very good at that sometimes.
That's interesting, because you were one of my first friends to meet my boyfriend. I don't say his name on this pod, just to give you a heads up. And you met him and were like, boom, and you got on. And and there was banter, he's not... My boyfriend isn't the type of guy to have these kind of conversations, which we have. Not because he's, not for any bad reason. It's just he just doesn't find interest in them, which is fine. No, he doesn't watch them.
Doesn't watch. Fair enough.
I've said to him, I was like, you can watch them if you want to watch them, and he's like, it's just not my cup of tea, which is so fine. It's not. But yeah, you got on straight away, and that was a bantery, relationship, and that was fine. So
I think banter's different things to different people, and also, so I find some people more intimidating and some people less. I didn't actually find your boyfriend that intimidating. Not because of any physical reason, just because I found him a very easy person to speak to.
He is.
He does seem very easy to speak to.
He's a big friendly giant, really, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, yeah. And I can find people really, really intimidating to speak to often. Not because I'm scared of them, but I'm scared of they're short. Because I don't like to perceive things in objective ways. It makes me quite ungrounded. And this is a problem with being centrist, right? You're naturally more ungrounded because you don't perceive things in objective, factual ways that people can disagree and agree with. So you're naturally not going to be so emotive about what you have to say, naturally therefore not so confident about what you have to say. And therefore when you come across someone who is very confident about what they have to say, it's very hard to know how to navigate around that. Because I don't want to... Because I like to question things, but if I start questioning things that they start saying are objective facts, then they'll see me as lesser. They'll see me as a dick,
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I get it. I do get it.
I mean, I guess then I just don't question it, but I don't really know how to act because I don't really like to speak with objective facts. I don't know. This sounds very abstract to talk about, but it really does apply to lots of everyday conversations. I promise.
It does. Yeah, no, it does. It does.
But no, but I'm not very good at banter with most people or with a lot of people. I think your boyfriend and I just perhaps have similar humour, or we were able to understand, to have those kind of jokes. But some people I don't. I mean, what about you? Do you not find that you interact differently with different people?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Because you asked me just a moment, 5-10 minutes ago now. I ramble. I apologise about my rambling. And please stop me as well if I'm saying things that are irrelevant.
You're saying things that are interesting. I'm listening to you.
Thank you. But you asked me, why don't I just behave like this with everyone? Why don't I just, live, behave in a way that I'm proud of to everybody?
Yeah. Well, consider it.
But why don't you? Do you do that?
Yeah.
You do?
There's not a single person in my life anymore that I meet up with and the person that I'm with them I'm disappointed in, or I'm cringing at, or I think isn't even myself. You know, like, you'll see it when you watch these pods, how I interact with my mum and all of my different friends are different. They alternate and they're slightly altered, but I'm not in each and every episode like a different person altogether. I'm still myself, and I still have my own traits. I just show different sides of myself maybe, but they're still mine. And, you know,
often when the situation changes as well, like in this podcast room, it's easy to be one kind of person. But then if you're different clubs and societies, for example, I'm finding it's hard. I'm always meeting new people as well.
Yeah.
At these places. I mean, how do you find when you meet new people? How do you find you act?
I always say there's like a key to everybody. So everybody.
That's very language gamey.
It is very language gamey. It's a huge analogy, but when I meet people, I consider them like a locked box. And every conversation I see is like a different kind of key, and some fit and some don't. But once you've got the one that fits, you open that box, and that allows so many other conversations and access to that person and understanding them and how they work. And that's how I approach meeting people, is I will try lots of different things, topics, different, you know, kind of conversations, different behaviors as well. Some people find energy too much. Some people need to be more laid back. Some people find the laid back a bit like unapproachable, and you need to put a bit more in.
It is hard to know how much energy you put into things, isn't it? Yeah.
And you just gauge it. I try them all, like a key in a lock.
And what about like I don't know, often conversations flow around complaining about things as well.
Yeah,
right?
The unity in hatred is enormous.
I don't feel comfortable doing that.
I don't feel comfortable doing it. I just think it's quite bitchy a lot of the time.
Yeah. But even like complaining about things like the weather and stuff like that, like that's really almost more what I'm talking about. You know, like oh, I've got work to do. It's very easy to do. But then I point myself out, I'm like, I don't need to do that. I don't need to complain about these things.
Yeah.
It's only bringing me unhappiness. Or even worse, often I notice that I'm doing it because it's something to converse about.
Yes. It's just small talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it makes me look lazy and unorganized, or it makes me look unhappy.
Or negative. Yeah, negative.
Just negative.
Like draining. No, I get that. I think it's natural to be able to complain about things that, you know, are troubling you.
Yeah.
But as long as they're of substance, oh my God, as long as they're of substance, like it annoys me when people, every time you see them, it's like, this really fucked me off, and this really annoyed me, and this person's really pissed me off, and it's just constant list. I'm like, dude, did anything good happen to you in the past week since I've seen you? Because I'm not hearing any of it, you know?
I guess on the other hand, sometimes people want to speak to you because they want to get something off their chest, you know?
Which is fine, and I understand that. It's the consistency, basically. You know, if every time I see you, the world has collapsed at your feet, is anything actually collapsing at your feet? Is there any issue ever? You know, and it's all about perspective, I guess, isn't it? For some people, you know, I learned this in sixth form. For some people, you know, I've always said it's not the size of the problem, it's the size of the impact it has on you, because everybody's perception of problems and the significance of that problem is different. You know, if someone's like, for example, got just lost somebody, like grieving, and then somebody's just lost their pet and is grieving, a lot of people would look at that and be like, well, the person that's lost like their mum or their grandparent or whatever, they're obviously grieving more. But actually, if this person that's lost their pet has never lost a person, that impact is the same on them, because they don't understand. Do you see what I mean? So it's not the size of the problem, it's the size of the impact that it has on that person.
I think when I met you, I found it, well, when we talk, and especially when I was getting to know you, it was very interesting because you have a lot more real world experience than I have about things and about dealing with suffering, really, and pain. You know,
Tortured soul.
No, okay, that sounds really bad. But
no, that's
maybe
fine.
pain's a better word, because suffering is perhaps a more mental idea. But pain is, you know, dealing with real world pain. You know, like I don't want to breach anything that you're not comfortable with. I'm not going to ask you to talk about anything.
I'm comfy about everything, honestly.
I appreciate it, but I think you know, you've actually had to deal with some real shit that I've never had to deal with, and yet a past version of me. And I think I actually want to point this out as well, because I'm putting these views out there about moderatism and things like that, but people may know me and think that I'm not like that, and I'm not very good at these things. You know, often I really behave like the things that I'm criticizing now, or I'm pointing out I don't believe in. So understand that I'm not saying that I'm a guru at this, or I'm trying to work
Oscar
on it.
knows
I promise.
everything.
I'm trying to work on all of this. But
He's got his shit together.
But I used to be worse. I used to be so emotionally charged. If you knew me at school, hopefully no one is watching who knows me at school, because no one at school came to university. That's very unlikely.
Yeah, I doubt it.
It'd be very interesting to hear about what they would have to say if they were, because
how they'd perceive
I'm so
you
different.
now.
This is very different. Maybe it isn't. Maybe I'm overemphasizing this difference. But I know for a fact, at least, that I was very emotionally charged about perspectives and opinions, and it made it very hard to listen to other people's perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really whiny. I was really upset and angry about lots of things, and yet I wasn't really dealing with anything bad. I had it cushy. I was a privileged guy. I grew up with very very lucky background.
Yeah.
And then I meet you, and you've gone through real shit, and yet you aren't super upset. You don't let your emotions get the better of you when you talk about these things too much. You're able to be calm and eloquent and clear and concise, and you're able to talk about these things without being very righteous in a way, which I was even when I was dealing with nothing.
Wow.
And I learned a lot from
that. That was a huge compliment.
Well, it's interesting because it's really I didn't have a lot of real world experience. I still don't, and it really put things into perspective for me. I was like, actually, you know what, I had things lucky, and I still do. And I guess lucky is relative,
But it's okay to be lucky as long as you appreciate the luck. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. And maybe I didn't. I don't think I did, and now I really am. But appreciating my luck, and you've taught me a lot of that, to be fair, because you're able to appreciate things despite shit that's gone on.
My horrific life.
So I'm not making. I don't want to make it sound like
I'm joking. I'm taking the piss. I'm taking the piss. I'm joking.
This isn't a stab at you, Ava's mum. I think you're awesome, Fiona. Honestly,
Fiona
not you.
is
I
a
promise.
Fiona is such a slay. Anyway, we need to kind of wrap up, Oscar.
My bad.
It's not your bad. Stop saying it's your bad. It's our bad. Our shared bad. Is there any sort of like concluding thing that you want to say?
No.
Oh.
No.
After everything.
Do you want me to say anything?
All these
concluding?
arguments that we've said and these big philosophies, and you're like, yeah, no, I'm done now.
Well, because I don't want to push an agenda. I don't have anything that I want to push,
That's your concluding argument. I don't want to push an agenda.
Well, if I did, it'd be moderatism. It'd be to listen to other people. But, we all do that. And having someone point that out to you is very patronising, isn't it?
Yeah, facts.
So
just to let you guys know, you don't need to take any of what we've said on board. This is all just our own opinions.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Thank you for coming on, Oscar.
Thank you very much. I've
Love
enjoyed
you
it.
Lots.
Love you too.
And I'll see you when I see you. And I'll see you when I see you in the outro just now. Please watch it. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks so much for watching today, everybody. This is episode number 4, episode 5 next week. I told you, consistent queen. I'm back. I'm ready. I'm in the game. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, basically. I've forgotten how to do my outros. I do it every week. And I'll see you next week. Definitely, for sure. I think. Cool. Now you can press pause. Hang on. Don't press pause.
Go on, press the space bar. Shit.
Still recording?
It might be.
Was it recording the whole time? I don't know.
Well, we might have to have a take 2.
Oh, it's just trying to update the computer. Fuck off. Why would I want to update the computer halfway through? Sorry.
Back in. Are we going to edit that out, or is that staying?
I'm going to put it in the bloopers at the end, I think.
Nice. Perfect. Good.